Hey everybody, welcome to Your Unpaid Therapist.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Your Unpaid Therapist.
I'm not getting paid. I didn't even get a donut.
Oh, that's sexy though. I like it. I'm Valerie Milagros Ortiz. I don't know. I am your host, Ali Kona. She's away. Brad Ford.
This is Your Unpaid Therapist. Shoo-wah, cha-cha.
Shoo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba.
Hello everybody. Welcome back to Your Unpaid Therapist. And as you can see, we have our beautiful, gorgeous guest returning. It's Gina Starbuck. She is our Reiki Master, sound healer, and of course, intuitive movement coach. So hello.
Yes.
Hello. Welcome back. Yeah. So today we wanted to get into, you guys heard me talking about my uncle and other episodes, so really controversial. And Val, she actually brought up the discussion of the right to choose euthanasia. And then also we wanted to talk about how sound healing maybe could help. We don't know. Reiki could help, but Gina's going to explain that to us. But first, let's get into our never have I ever's. So,
Okay.
where are the cards? Oh, right in front of you, girl. Right in front of you.
Like
It's okay, boo.
the big old mic was in the way. So if you're new to the podcast, we do these never have I ever's to kind of break the ice, get some silly stuff with it. You want to go first?
Sure.
We have some cards if you're not watching us.
Okay, never have I ever acted like a badass as a child and then got the belt from a parent. Ooh, I sure have. Not the belt, but I got the hand real good. And like I lied, and never did I lie again after that.
What did you lie about?
I don't even know.
Okay,
Like,
you just remember it.
Yeah.
I remember I was like sassy about something. My dad had this big thing about like me talking on the phone. I still don't understand it. And so I was on like a cordless phone, and like, you know, this is back when there were landlines, like it wasn't a cell phone. And so he wanted me to get off the phone, and then he picked up the one that was by the wall and like hung it up, but it didn't hang it up, you know, because I was on the cordless, and I was like, I don't know. I said something that I shouldn't have said. And this never happened. Y'all, he popped me in the mouth. And I was like, it was soft, but he went, and I was like, hey, Karina, I gotta go. It was so funny to me. And it's still kind of funny because I think the only time my dad's ever even like touched me and like, but obviously, oh, I know what it was. You know how people, and I still to this day do this, and I'm like, you're so dumb. But I mean like silly. That's what I said. And I know my dad was like, ¿qué? Pero like, yeah. So never again. What about you?
Oh, I definitely got the belt, but I think only once. But I remember it distinctly. Like I was not a teenager. I was a younger kid, and that shit is traumatic. Like there's a reason why most people now, like I'm a mom, like I am not going to do that. I will not spank my child. I will not give her the belt. Like it's crazy, but I definitely got it. And I for sure got smacked by my mom a couple of times. So, and I like, you know, have kind of always been, I guess, mouthy, you know, like I never was the one to shy away from saying what I thought. So yeah.
I mean, good for you, but you don't strike me as the type. That's funny.
Well, you know, I'm an Aries moon.
Oh,
if that means anything for y'all. So it's like emotionally, it's either like all the way hot or all the way cold. Yeah.
Okay, so I picked a card and it says, never have I ever played strip poker. No, I have never. I don't even know how to play not strip poker, regular poker. You?
No, I did try to do a sexy dance once though to Montel Jordan's Let's Ride. That was back before you realized that videos go like into the cloud and shit. Never will I do that now. But anyways, that's the closest thing I got to. And I didn't strip. I was just like trying to be sexy. Anyways, what about you?
Yeah, I don't think I ever played strip poker either, shockingly, because I did a lot of wild things growing up.
I love it. I want to know. Okay, so we're going to spread these cards out and see. Oh, wait. Sorry, I was going to the wrong camera. Any color that jumps out at you for your never have I ever played?
Is that pink or is that red?
Pink.
Pink. Okay. Let's go that one in the middle. The middle pink one. Yes.
Okay. So Oh, this one's so funny because look how small they up. Never have I ever blamed the dog for a fart that accidentally escaped.
I have not blamed the dog for a fart, and he's probably going to be so mad. But I do remember my man once, when my daughter was little, pretended like she had like a poopy diaper or something, but it was actually his fart, like somewhere.
He was trying to be slick.
Yeah.
Did you call him out?
I don't think I called him out like publicly in the moment, but I think I told him later, like, dude, I know exactly what you did.
That's so funny. That's a no for me, but I remember my Miley would have like little stinky ones. So it was like so obvious that it was doggy. Wait, I already know what she's gonna say. No, I've never farted and blamed on the dog. But I remember once in middle school, like before school started, they would just have us sit in the bleachers in the gym before the first bell rang. And there was 2 boys that I thought were so cute and they were really popular and they were sitting behind me. And I happened to be sitting next to somebody who was a little on the quirky side, you know, and I accidentally farted silently. And the 2 guys behind me were like, oh, you smell that? So it's like, I looked back at them and I was like, and I totally blamed any other kid. Poor little guy.
Oh, man.
That is funny. But I'm sure they believe that more than you.
Yeah.
So that is awesome. Okay.
There's like no kind of smooth transition. By
a deadly silent fart. There you go. I thought about it right there. I was like, hey, the deadly silent one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we like to start it light just in case we do get into a topic like this, which is a little bit heavier. But Gina and I were talking on the phone, and I was just so intrigued by all the things that she does. Because as we talked about in our other episode, like she's a sound healer and energy, and it's so important. And some people believe it and not. But when it is coming to a point in your life where, like my uncle right now is terminally ill, and as of last night, they're like, he has 2 weeks to live. So at that point, it's like, Gina, could he call you and be like, hey, can we work together? Could you help me transition, or could you help me heal, or like at what? Can you do anything at that point?
Okay. We're going to get into it. First of all, I'm so sorry about your uncle. Like, death is definitely a part of the life cycle. And I think any way you swing it, in our culture especially, it's not easy, you know? Like, we don't really have systems in place or conversations much that really support like people in really being able to hold and navigate that transition. You know, it brings up a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain. And I just want to like give you a moment of just love and acknowledgement and just like telling you I see you. And yeah, just love to your uncle and to your family as you all navigate this time. To me, it's like, it's neither this nor that, in the sense that like I'm a true believer that there's a couple of things at play in all of our lives, right? Like I do believe that we all come here encoded with like an ultimate destiny, like an energy, an essence, a frequency, some life force that we're here to deliver to the planet. And I believe that that can be delivered in a number of ways. And in any situation, I really can see that there's multiple possibilities. There's multiple paths. And I believe actually that that's the truth with death as well. That some people come in as souls like with a definite agreement. I'm going to transition out of body at this time and it's going to happen this way. But that being said, everything is pliable, and the field, like the quantum realm, the field of possibility, the Akashic records, whatever we want to call it, it's forever changing. Like the only thing that's constant is that everything is changing. So, you know, I would really say if someone came to me, and I have worked with people who are terminally ill, and sometimes they're like, I'm in full acceptance of this, and I just want to surrender to it, and I want support in this process. And if someone is genuinely, honestly there in the full acceptance, I don't believe that it would be correct for me to try to steer them in any direction, because I also really, really believe that everybody on a soul level has free will and has choice. Now, if they are in that position where they've been diagnosed and they're terminally ill and there's not, the doctors are saying there's not that much time, but they're like, I want more time. I want to extend this. I want to explore other options. I'm going to show up and help them with that to the best of my ability as well. So I feel like it's really like there's no definitive black or white. It's really just a matter of like helping support the person with where they're at in the process and really giving them permission that like, whichever way it goes, however their journey unfolds, that they're going to be loved and held and supported without any judgment about the process.
What does that process look like? If somebody did come to you and they're like, hey, I have terminal cancer, but I want to live and I just don't know what to do. I've done chemo, I've done that. And like Western medicine is just not doing anything for me. So what do you do?
Yeah, I have had one person in particular that comes to mind that I worked with, and there have been a couple of others. For me, it's really about holding the field of possibility and helping that person kind of access where life exists within them and life connected to this body, to this planet. So that can take, again, like many different forms. That can be done with sound, like recalibrating the system and balancing things out with sound. That can be done with really getting into the mental state, like where in my mind have I already like kind of checked out or given up? Like what, because a lot of people often become fragmented. And disease is whether it's terminal or not, is just illuminating to me anyway, from my perspective, some like aspect of self that needs to be integrated back into the whole. Disease happens when like things aren't quite clicking and they're not communicating in the correct way. So it's a lot about getting things to click and to communicate and really like seeing, okay, where have pieces of me been exiled, or where is this like unhealed trauma kind of being stored in my cells and creating disease or problem and ringing the alarm, because that's what it is. It's just ringing the alarm. Give me attention. And that's really like kind of the entry point. I know I'm talking a lot, so I want to give you all the opportunity.
Yeah, I had a question though, because I had a not real niece, but like my boyfriend's niece, she was 2 and she was like really like 1.5 when she was diagnosed with leukemia. So how would you in that way kind of categorize that for a child who hasn't had much? Like, is that something like, and I don't know if like a past life soul, like, or a soul that had it before and then like is now coming into this little baby and then like how do you explain that and for a young soul, or maybe it's not a young soul? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, I think I don't want to say especially as a mom, but as a mom, even now, if I'm seeing a child that's dealing with that, a family that has a child that's having to go through that, it's like, how do you make sense of that? And I don't have the answer. I mean, I do believe my experience is, and what I've seen is that we do come in as souls. Like, I don't believe that it's just this one life, right? So most of us are coming in with karmic agreements and things that have happened in other lifetimes and like threads of things that are like, from other dimensions, other planets, other lifetimes. So, it could be some of that. It could also be that like, and this is really difficult to say, and I just want to like acknowledge that this is such a sensitive subject for people. So, like if this is like doesn't feel good to you, like please just take what feels correct and leave the rest. But, there are souls, I believe, that come in to kind of offer a gift to their family, to their friends, to whoever they're impacting, even if it is just a short time. And I want to say, unfortunately, we're still in this like evolutionary process as souls where we're learning from pain still. And I don't know, maybe eventually we will evolve or transcend that, right? Where we don't have to learn from pain anymore. We can just learn from pleasure and joy.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem to me anyway, and I believe this is true some of the time for like miscarriages even, that it's like the soul comes in and actually part of their gift, it's like their sacrifice. They're offering their life for those other humans to have an experience that hopefully can bring them some sort of illumination, some sort of healing, some sort of big change.
Yeah.
And again, it's like also nuanced. And I do not have all of the answers. And like, yeah.
I actually have a thought on that. Two thoughts. One being, I feel like sometimes, I didn't even think of the whole past lives, but I do think that we pass down our wounds to our children. That's why, like, cancer runs in the family, or like in my case, acne runs in the family, but acne is technically considered like small bursts of anger. And there's so much of that on the Bradford side of the family that I came into that unknowingly, but that energy was passed on to me as I was born genetically through, epigenetics through my father. So that's my belief. But as far as my best friend passed away of cancer when I was 15, but the beauty in that, outside of her and I forming a really special bond, I went to the hospital every day after school, and she was such a wise soul for 15. And when she passed, like, her funeral was gigantic. In part, her parents were teachers, right? But there was like the football team from this school and from that school, and all these people that came together, and then afterwards went to her house and had food or whatever. So in some ways, trauma, disease, and death bring people together to form other separate bonds. So maybe that's part of the sacrifice that you're talking about. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, and also I think it's important to share that, like, I believe anyway, that death is also a birth. Like, it is, it's a circle, right? It's like death out of this
Physical
body.
death, you mean?
Yeah.
Like would be the birth of the soul in another realm?
Yes, exactly. So it's like, I just really, it's hard because you can see, my dad passed of cancer. My mother-in-law just transitioned like a year and a half ago of cancer. And especially with cancer specifically, it can be so brutal because there's like so much suffering that happens to get to the other side. But especially with my partner's mom, I was very there with her at those last months, that like the end of life where, I kind of witnessed her kind of decompose back into like almost a baby.
Yeah.
And while that is incredibly painful to watch, I did find myself having these moments of like really witnessing the beauty. And I could see the places where her suffering actually became bliss. Like even before she transitioned all the way out of body, I was witnessing her kind of go in and out. I just could see like that she was between realms. And it's like, I just started to really see, and I knew this already, but when you can see it, it's like, oh, she's birthing into something else. And what do we do when babies are birthed? Or what should we do anyway? Hopefully, there will be more of this. We gather around the birthing mother and we celebrate and we hold space and we offer love in our prayers. And it's like a celebration. And so I just hope that we can somehow as a culture start to see the birth aspect of death and start to really gather around. Hopefully, mostly it's our elders as they're like making these transitions out of body, and like witness them and love them through the pain, but also like really look at how can we celebrate, like, first of all, their life and all the stuff that's happened here on this planet, but like they're birthing into something else.
Sure.
Like, yeah. So,
and with all that said, I think you use the word suffering, and going into that topic of euthanasia, which is very controversial. But the first time that I've thought about it because I put my dog to sleep, and my brother did, and just thinking of that and experiencing that felt, I don't even know how to describe it really. but it was like this weird, it felt like a gift I was giving her. So it's like, okay, rest, baby. I'm getting emotional. But at the same time, when thinking about humans who at a certain point, and depending on like how their health is, it's called what a passive euthanasia. But when it comes to active euthanasia, that's like the big debate. But on Instagram, I don't know why this came up on my feed, but there was these pods, these euthanasia pods, and that are made, I guess, now legal in Switzerland. And people can go in there and essentially press a button and fall asleep. And of course, the comments were full on like, very much like the pro-life people and blah, blah, blah. Like that's not right. That's suicide. So I brought it up to Ali Kona because I was like, this is fascinating to me. And for instance, like my father, like I know if my dad was suffering or in pain, like he would be like, I'm going to the pod, and he's like, I'm going to fall asleep. And hearing the way you describe it and kind of having that like acceptance of like this rebirth, I could see how in some of these countries that accept euthanasia, how they see it as a positive, not like a negative.
Yeah.
I found an article that said active euthanasia is legal in 7 countries worldwide. Most notable are the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Canada, and Spain, which is really interesting. What are your thoughts? Well, both of y'all. Would you do a pod?
Gina, I'm gonna let you go and then I'll go.
Oh, that's really hard to say. I mean, there's like so much nuance. It's like, how do you say? And like, who am I to say that if somebody is in that space,
right?
Like, how do I tell somebody what they should and shouldn't do? That being said, I do believe on a soul level, if we are kind of prematurely ending the assignment, and it's not from a space of like, I am complete, my body is done, like whatever it may be, I think there's things that have to be accomplished on the other side. So it's like, and I hate to bring this in and trigger warning maybe, but like the conversation of suicide, right? It's like people have all kinds of thoughts and ideas about that. And it just seems like, when people do that, they get to the place where it's just like, it's too much here and I can't handle it and I just want to be done.
Yes.
And then it seems to me anyway that on a soul level, it's like, oh, but you still have to, like, there's some things that need to be completed. So it's like,
I could see how that's debatable, because I could see how somebody maybe in that mindset is, or even not, even a loved one would be like, that was the lesson. That was their gift to me, and knowing the fragility of mental health and speaking on depression and things like that. So I could see it really being both on someone teaching through this very tragic situation. It's tricky, like you said. I mean, we know, or I don't know. Did you cross paths with Twitch?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And I'm sure Gina has too.
Right, that's right.
We were my best friend in college. We like.
So how was that all for you
together?
Both?
Well,
being in that space.
I'll say, A, how was that for you? And B, I mean, you weren't maybe still around him, but were there any outside external things happening in your interactions with him where you're like, that makes sense?
Ooh, I just feel like out of respect and honor for like his family, I maybe shouldn't go there.
Okay.
And I will say that did really hit me, like in a lot of ways. So I'll just speak to my experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's still kind of, I don't want to say resolving itself in my mind and in my spirit, because it's like, how do you even resolve that? But you're right. We weren't really in touch. We had kind of been out of touch for several years. And, you know, I just find myself wishing that we had been more in touch. Not that, like, you know, who knows if I could have done anything to support. But yeah, that was a lot. And I know that there are family members that are still like really deep in that healing process. So I just think it's best for me to not go there right now on that topic.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And outside of the, whether you knew him or not, I mean, obviously I worked with Allison, but he's not the only person who's committed suicide that we've all heard of or seen in the media. So in general, it obviously, because of the suddenness of it, and mainly I think is the ignorance, really, and especially for people who are in the limelight, who are seemingly everything's so great, and then you have the highlight reels and things like that. I think that's also been part of the disconnect of what people are really truly going through, and it is only for his close family and friends to understand, really, and they may not even understand, you know. So that's the tricky part. But I just wonder, for, I guess, there obviously, what's the line, right? And I'd love to talk to anybody in like Switzerland or some of these countries who have maybe known somebody who used active euthanasia, and like what the process is like for them, and like what are the checkpoints, you know, if any.
Yeah. I wonder. Go ahead.
I was like, I just want to piggyback off of that because, again, in mentioning my uncle, so I went and saw him recently, and he had been OD'd. So basically, he is considered terminally ill. We moved him to a hospice because in the hospice, he could have his Diet Coke or do whatever, like one last cigarette, whatever. And they moved him there. And literally that night, the hospice, trying to quote unquote comfort him, OD'd him on pain medication, and it put him into a coma. And they called my family, and they're like, well, it looks like he's a goner tonight. And we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, he still had time. And he's in a point where he's like, if I go out, resuscitate me. Like, he is not ready mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to bring him back to a hospital. By the time I got there, he was out of it and had a breathing tube in, and he just didn't like it. As much as he was out of it, he kept pulling it out. So I kept putting it back in his nose, and he'd be like, ah, like it sounded like he was in pain. And you could feel the nurses walking by and just staring at us, judging us for keeping him alive. But then the next day, once he was detoxed from the drugs, I walked into his room, surprised to find him awake, and he was just like, oh, hey, what's up? So I was like, okay, I don't think he is ready to go yet. But the point is like, there was that judgment that came in that you could tell people are like, what are you doing to this man? But
Yeah,
his choice, like he had said before.
right. I was gonna say his choice, and point blank, period. Like, even if you guys thought or agreed with these nurses, and you know, felt like you know, we should probably, you know, whatever, I think the respect of the person is huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge. I was telling Ali Kona that my grandma was in a similar situation, and she was put into a hospice, and she was just not ready. Same thing. And it's like, so I do, with that said, and hearing that and experiencing it, that's why when somebody like my father, or maybe somebody who commits suicide, I'm like, if they feel, if that pain is so deep and they're just tired, you know, if somebody's going through chemo or whatever, or God knows what, they were molested, some fucking crazy shit, and they're done. Like, it is so not fair for anybody else to, it really frustrates me for anybody else to have power of that.
Well, yeah.
And I understand, obviously, the controversy or the people being like, that's suicide and God and blah, you're going to hell. But it's like, okay, cool, but like, then you don't kill yourself. You know?
Yeah.
Like, not to put, I mean, it sounds really harsh like that, but like, that part, you know? And if we could do it to animals, which you are so, you know, like a huge advocate and stuff, it's like, if we could just be killing animals left and right, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it just all comes back to free will, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I just, know sometimes also, though, people get hijacked by like, I'm going to just go ahead and say entities, like these ideas, these energies, these entities that actually aren't them on a soul level.
Right. Like the
And
medication. Yeah.
so, it's just like with a conversation that is as serious as soul transition out of body, body no longer being alive. It's like I feel like there's got to be some sort of system in place.
Absolutely.
We are going to offer that choice that we really help people examine and explore. Like, is this actually you?
Correct.
Your truth on a soul level, or is this some other thing that's like inundated your spirit?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the same way you have to like take tests and have like your driver's permit before you can, operate a vehicle. Like, I mean, obviously, that's like a really silly example, but same idea. Like you can do lots of damage with that to yourself and others. Same thing. Like you have to go through maybe some counseling or some, I don't know. That would be like minimum that I could just without even really doing research think like that would make sense for people.
Gina, I wanted to ask you, because Val and I were actually talking about this, as far as with somebody who is terminal, they've tried everything and they're like, hey, Gina, can you help me? And let's say they have, I'm going to make something up, maybe irrelevant, but I just don't, being sensitive. Let's say I have elbow cancer, whatever, it's terminal. And I've tried everything. How quickly, because I feel like with Eastern medicine, not that you're a herbalist, but people don't have as much patience with it because natural tends to take longer than Western, where Western's like immediate. So they give up on alternative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
How long does that take? Like, again, if I had this sickness and I'm like, please just help me live, I only have a few weeks. Again, what do we do and how quickly can we get healed?
Well, it can be instantaneous. I mean, I've literally seen it. There are people who, and it doesn't have to happen through a Reiki session or whatever. Like there are tons of stories out there, people sitting ayahuasca for a night, and then they go back and they get scans and it's gone. Or like my mentor works with this this technology called bioscalar technology. And, people have gone in for 3, 4, 5 bioscalar sessions and then their scans are clear. It's like it really, I feel like it just depends. Like I have seen it take a long time. I've seen it not work at all. And I've seen it almost like instantaneous, spontaneous healing. And I really feel like it just comes to, it's not one thing or the other. I feel like it's a co-creation of like, what is the modality? Who's holding the space? What's the belief system of the person that's receiving the healing? I mean, my belief is people can speak their own self into healing. They can speak life and vitality and well-being over their body and like cast out this disease and just claim it and really be in that belief. And it can work. I mean,
it's hard to hear that, I have to be honest, because it's very much like when people talk about manifestation. And if like you got in a car accident, like that's your fault or your energy's off. So I want to believe that. But it's also hard to hear because, for instance, Andy, the 2-year-old, I don't think she did anything and could have done anything to have healed it, she's a little baby kind of situation. So with that, it's like, I would hate to think like, oh, it's just this person it's their fault that this disease is happening or that it can't get rid of or it can't be healed. But at the same time, with that said, I do believe there are people or instances, and so then this is where this destiny pops into my head when you were saying that. I'm like, okay, so is some of that the ones that it does work for the same exact healing process for two people with let's say the same exact thing, same location, same age, twins, for instance, and I've seen them do studies on twins with things like this. One is healed, the other one isn't. It's just like, is that destiny? Is that, I mean, it's not genetics. They have the same bloodline. Is it mental? Is it one believed it could happen? Is it one didn't? I just, if I got cancer, I would be really frustrated if like being like, well, manifested that shit, girl. Like,
yeah, of course. And I hope I
like, I don't know, like, see, okay.
I hear you. And I hope I didn't sound like I was like
No,
blaming
but-
anybody for their experience.
No, this is why I love this conversation, because I do believe in manifestation. But like that, this is why the conversation is interesting to me, because, and I've had Reiki done on me, but there are certain things that hearing it out loud, I'd be like, oh shit, but fuck.
Yeah.
For real stupid. Like, so that's why I just want to talk about it, because it's a real thought that I've had. It's just like, well, you believe in manifestation, then damn,
how
like,
do you do that?
And yeah. And I don't want to believe that part.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there's just so many layers to it. Like, it's like I'm not the only one creating my reality. Like, I also believe in manifestation, but it's like I think what a lot of people are missing is that we are all interconnected, and not just like here on this planet, but interdimensionally too. And it's like with my human brain, my human comprehension, there's only so much that I can even understand or like project into reality. And there are still things like I can say over and over again the same affirmation. I'm a billionaire, I'm a billionaire, I'm a billionaire. But it's like there's shit that has to click beyond me and even beyond my belief. Like there are other things that need to line up. And like, is the thing that I'm claiming actually in alignment with like, because there's personal destiny, personal karma, right? But then there's like the whole, the collective destiny. And I think sometimes we just leave that part out.
Yeah. And, I actually don't hear a lot of people talking about the collective destiny. Have you? No. Yeah. Or collective manifestation.
No, so what are your thoughts on, and I'm going to bring up Teresa Espinoza, who's a mutual friend, and she's been on this podcast before, but like when it comes to animals, not that animals are your specialty, or maybe they are, I don't know, but you know, a dog that has like kidney failure or whatever, like my dog had kidney stones, and it's like her brain, I don't think, has the conscious ability to think negatively to where she could manifest a kidney stone. And I don't know if she was absorbing my energy, taking something from me, and she got that. But one of Teresa's explanations, because my dog had passed away very quickly, like she fell into somebody's pool and she drowned, which was so awful. But
so you brought her back to life.
I did bring her back to life, and then brought her to the vet. And then at the vet, she passed away the next day. And so when I was talking to Teresa about it, she was like, you need to understand too, that like my dog's name was Lonnie Kai. She's like, Lonnie Kai had her own destiny too. So even though you think that, because I kept blaming myself, and she's like, even though you think that's your fault, you know, she did have kidney stones. And so that could have been her choice. So don't take that out of the equation. And I was like, okay. And I think that's not a very direct question at you. So I apologize. I threw a lot at you, but the point was like, do you think that animals can like manifest stuff? Or is that taking on their, I don't know. I don't even know what my question is. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I mean, yeah, I believe so. I really have seen and witnessed that animals, especially like dogs and cats, do tend to just pick up stuff from the people that they're around. And even like when my dad was sick with cancer, this stray cat started showing up at the house, and my dad would feed the cat. This cat passed, I think 3 days after my dad passed, with the same throat tumor. Yes.
Oh my God.
So it's like, that's just a very bold example of, I don't believe that all animals are here to like, you know, help us clear our shit, but some of them do. They show up like in service to us and to help us kind of transcend stuff. And yeah, I do feel like they have their own destiny too. And on the topic of euthanasia, you know, I think I said in the beginning, maybe I didn't, maybe this is another call today, but we just adopted another dog. She was a foster fail, and we fostered her because she is a healthy puppy. She's a little over a year old, beautiful German Shepherd mix. And she ended up in the shelter, and she was literally on the euthanasia list for the day after we rescued her.
Wow.
And it's like, what? Like, that's a whole other thing with animal So I'm not directly answering your question, but I do believe that like part of her destiny was to like, you know, be, I guess saved. We did save her from that and to be with us and to now be a part of our family and to like receive our love. And it just, it felt timely that like that just the timing of that, you know, that we had like offered her this gift of life, because something that's been really present for me lately, and I think we probably need to wrap up soon, but is, you know, I think because we're so deprived of understanding of death in our culture.
Yeah.
And we have such a shortage of just support around what that is and how we even be with that energy. Because like physical death out of body is one thing, but all of us are going through death and rebirth cycles like all the time. Aspects of ourself are being laid to rest and new aspects are emerging. And I have been in this personal inquiry and this kind of struggle around that, because I know that like part of my destiny on this planet is that I really help to hold the collective pain and like alchemize it to joy. But in order to do that, sadly, I have to move that collective pain and grief through my own body and through my own being. And so sometimes I find myself in like, it feels like I am dying. And, you know, I have to sort of resurrect myself. Like in those moments, I have to catch myself and remind myself, like, I have a belief that while it's nuanced, right, and it's never just black or white, like every moment we are either choosing life or we're choosing death. And I'm not saying one choice is better than the other. Sometimes it's better to choose death, to lay that career to rest or that relationship to rest or whatever, or to lay that suffering animal to rest. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think that people don't have that knowledge and it's a real struggle. So anyhow, that's just something that felt
I love that. I love that you brought that up, because it's so true. And we do, the physical is just so, you know, it's so in your face. But when you can think of it in the way you just explained and have that acceptance of it, of just like, yeah, we're going through these rebirth, death cycles often. And even just thinking about our lives, it's just like, oh shit, yep, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, rebirth. You know, you're like, dang. And a lot of it, especially some of the deaths, are like celebrations of like, fuck yeah, like what you were saying, like that needed to die. But having, you know, that feeling about it, that some of it is positive and helpful, is really, it just feels safe. And to have, and even just thanking you for to be able to have like these kind of conversations, and somebody who has, you know, your expertise and just how you're so in tune with like a lot of these realms that a lot of us aren't or don't, are very ignorant to maybe. I wish more people would know about it or would have these conversations and speak with people like you, Gina, who can open up their minds to things that maybe they didn't accept before or didn't even think about. Yeah, I think it's really nice. And it's it feels like a breath of fresh air, right? To be like, it doesn't have to be so scary.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of ending, for us to get to our ending. So, Gina, thank you so much for joining us. We had so much fun, and thank you for all your insight. It's been seriously wonderful.
Yes. Thank you. I so appreciate you both.
And thank you, everybody else, for listening. Okay, bye.
Adios.